Across the country, in Vancouver, another parent knows the pain of alienation. Pamela Richardson's marriage dissolved when her little boy Dash was a toddler.
He was a delight. He was a lovely little boy, and he loved his mother and his father equally, as all children do.
But Pamela's ex-husband Peter waged a savage custody war, using Dash as a weapon. A war he won, despite having problems with alcohol and drugs that affected his parenting.
How did he wind up with sole custody of Dash?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I guess I can say, in a nutshell, he was a very well-known criminal lawyer in the court system in Vancouver. And he was known by all the judges because judges are lawyers first, remember? And he knew the system.
So Dash lived with his father, but Pamela was supposed to get to see Dash half the time. Still, Peter got away year after year with denying Pamela visits with her son.
I wouldn't see Dash for, a number of months, and not without me trying, not without me doing all the classic things that parental alienated parents do: cookies on the doorstep, faxes, phone calls, notes, trying to see him at friends' houses, you name it. You do everything you possibly can to try and keep that thread of a relationship alive.
And time after time you would go back to court to try to enforce your access. And how valuable was that paper that said you were entitled to see your son?
It was worth nothing.
What's the longest time you went without seeing your son?
There was a period of 2 years, and I added up the hours, and it came to 24. 2 years.
That's an hour a month. What did you miss?
2 years of his life. Illness, struggles with homework, parent-teacher nights. I was also not allowed at the school or to visit the doctor or dentist with him.
As the years passed, Pamela realized her once carefree little boy, the son who loved times with his mum, was falling victim to what she calls a kidnapped mind, with too few moments like this, turning anxious and nervous with a father who was poisoning him against his mother.
I used to phone and phone and phone, and for any parent that goes through this, and if they're listening now, I'm sure they can appreciate how difficult emotionally it is to keep trying, to not give up, to not walk away.
He stopped calling you mom. He called you terrible things like bitch and whore, and did it frequently.
Well, there was a lot of abusive language.
What do you think it would take to take a little boy who loved his mom to become this rude, abusive child who refuses to see you?
What parents capable of this kind of abuse do is they use custody as an opportunity to isolate the child and program them.
Dash was a teen now, alienated and isolated from his mother for years. He began to spiral down, failing grades, skipped school, and signs of depression.
Comments like, if I was alone, I'd jump out of the school window. That he was out skateboarding till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And it seemed like there was no control, no supervision. And it frightened me to death.
What would Peter do?
He would deny it. He's fine. He's fine. The only thing that does bother him, he'd say, is his weekend visits with you.
Things got worse. Alcohol, drugs, and brushes with the law. Pamela kept up her fight for Dash, even finally winning custody. But Dash, completely alienated by now, stayed with his dad.
He was living with his father, but apparently the rumor was that he wasn't living there either. He was living in a car, and there were altercations and fistfights now between Peter and his very sadly unhealthy, emotionally, tragically damaged young man.
On January the 1st, 2001, the once joyful little boy came here to the Granville Bridge in Vancouver in the middle of the night. And at the age of 16, jumped, arms widespread, to his death.
Did he leave any sort of a note?
No. He felt very alone. And he was alone. And he was alone when he died.
Next,
You never recover from any child dying.
the consequences of bitter conflict,
These are my kids. I have every right to see them.
a potential for tragedy when children are pulled between mom and dad.
And the risk is what?
More deaths.
When CTV's W5 continues. In just a moment, a surprising place to heal for a family coming apart.
Got really outrageous.
We'll be right back.
Pamela Richardson lives every day with thoughts of the son she lost, a son who jumped to his death from this bridge in Vancouver.
You never recover from any child dying.
Dash took his own life after years of emotional abuse, the victim of parental alienation, a campaign by his father Peter to turn him against his mother in a battle over custody.
One thing I did know is that I'd given it everything I had. And more. So there was no guilt.
No guilt, but motivation to save other children from the same tragic fate. So Pamela wrote a book, and she wants the family court system to take notice and start doing something about cases of alienated children like Dash.
This is extreme. And this was something that was in the courts many, many times. They had an opportunity to do something, and they didn't.
Order all rise.
But at least this one judge in Toronto, Family Court Justice Harvey Brownstone, does pay attention.
First matter's ready, Your Honor.
And often, he doesn't like what he hears from feuding parents.
While there may be some therapeutic benefits to coming to court and venting and telling a judge how much you were hurt by the other parent's infidelities or bad conduct, at the end of the day, we're looking at parenting capacity, parenting skills. We need to look at how couples are going to reinvent themselves from ex-partners to co-parents.
In family court disputes, legally, the child has the rights and parents have obligations, period. But Brownstone says there are too many cases of battling parents who think and act like it's the other way around. He warns there could be a price to pay.
Parents who are on a campaign to destroy the child's relationship with the other parent could lose custody. And in extreme cases, courts have changed custody to the other parent.
So Brownstone wrote a book, too, about the legal tug-of-war that sticks children in the middle. A tug-of-war that can have deadly consequences.
This is real. This is child abuse.
And the risk of letting this continue is what?
More deaths.
Tragedy.